we're going to start with the Trae Young angle because naturally, anytime a multi-time All-Star is moved in season, that is a story in and of itself. The way that this story has presented itself, going back to the offseason, Trae's extension eligible, do we want to commit long-term to Trae Young? In light of what we saw from Jalen Johnson before he was ultimately injured, in light of the offseason moves that the Atlanta Hawks made, that answer appeared to be no, or at the very least, it was wait and see. And now we are here.
Yeah, we're gonna take the long road home a couple days a week. Get a new wardrobe. Start working out a little bit.
I see where this is going. This is you know what, I'm gonna leave that where it's at. But Trae Young, now a member of the Washington Wizards, and I am intrigued by this move from Washington's standpoint. I think a lot of people have done it, so I'm not going to be the first to do it. But if you are circling all the way back from the Bradley Beal trade and what they got for him, what those assets were moved for, and now it is CJ McCollum turning into Trae Young, like it's hard not to tip the cap to Washington management to make this kind of swing. You are adding at the high end a star caliber guard without giving up anyone in your immediate core. And it's also a bit of a short-term commitment. You have the Trae Young contract this year. You have the player option that I would assume he either accepts or if they're able to work out some sort of multi-year deal in the summer, then you have that. And you can do so while still having massive cap space heading into the offseason. So I think this is a good bit of asset management for the Washington Wizards on a broad view. But for Trae himself, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, before we get to Trae, I was going to say I don't mind the trade for the Washington Wizards because why not? Well, why not? I don't think it's we're trying to accelerate our rebuild type move, but we have an opportunity to add a talent, a player of that type of caliber. Where else and how else are we going to be able to get that? We have a lot of young talent, but as far as this slot goes, we've been kind of kicking this can down the road to a degree when you talk about the assets, and we're about to run out of cans. So, yeah, let's turn CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert into Trae Young and not have to give up any picks and keep our young core. We kind of saw something similar, a little different in San Antonio, but hey, we can get De'Aaron Fox and not give up a bunch for it. This is fantastic. So I think it's an opportunity for Trae Young to impact Washington. It's interesting how it all came about because I was very encouraged by the start in Atlanta, but I'm sure we'll touch on that when we get to the Hawks. But I mean, it's interesting.
It is interesting. I think there are some real existential questions to ask about not just Trae Young, but the small guard itself. I want to get to that a little bit later since there's naturally been a lot of conversation around that since Trae has been moved and other smaller guards have been moved over the past 2 or 3 years. But to the Trae addition specifically, at the high end, again, this is a dynamic scorer, more so a 2.5 level scorer, but a dynamic scorer nonetheless, who is a tremendous playmaker, who can make virtually any read you need him to in pick and roll. And so I think if you are optimistic about this move from the Wizards on-court situation, we have a lot of young talent. I think you have as well, but been very intrigued by what Keyshawn George has done this year. Bub Carrington, after a very slow start, scoring-wise, he's starting to perk up. Trae Johnson, as you recently wrote about, Steve, and has really talked about, Trae Johnson, very fun rookie, insane shooter. Bilal Coulibaly, who I'm still a fan of. I have some offensive questions. We'll get there while we're talking about the Wizards, but still an interesting prospect nonetheless. Alex Sarr, who has played, if not at all-star level, at the very least a fringe all-star level. He's kind of the crown jewel of the young core right now. Trae Young, for Sarr in particular, I am excited about. Because I've been intrigued by what Alex Sarr's season has been so far this year. The shooting, the drives, the face-up game in general. We know what he does defensively, or at the very least, you should know what he does defensively. Very coverage versatile, very good rim protector. The future is incredibly bright. And so now for Alex Sarr to go from, I can create a bunch of my shots and provide value, to this can become more of a bonus because I have a legitimate setup man for me in Trae Young. I can get easier looks. I'm really excited for what this addition will mean for him specifically for however long Trae is in Washington.
No, that's fair. I'm going to circle back to it, but I'm going to pull back as well. So just stick with me. Let's go on a quick ride. I think it's going to, one thing that's interesting, even if you go back to Atlanta, right? Everyone liked to show the graphic, hey, this is the Hawks without Trae Young, and this is the Hawks with Trae Young. This is untenable. Mm-hmm. And so understood, but I think there's a little bit more behind that if you think about it. The Hawks had worked to just empower Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels, right? And let them initiate and let them be part of actions. And we were at a point in Atlanta early on, preseason, early in the season, Trae Young's involved in more movement. Like, they're screening for him at the elbow. There's post splits for him. He's moving around more. And it's like, okay, the Hawks are in a position to get teams in rotation, and you're seeing Trae Young receive skip passes. We always talk about Trae Young and pick and roll. And what's that word starts with an H?
Are we talking heliocentric? Or
yeah, that one. Everyone likes to talk about what he does there, but now he was able to drive closeouts and kind of get catch and shoot opportunities that way. He goes out. Jalen Johnson's doing this. The Hawks are just running, pace, tempo, anyone can grab, anyone can go.
They were defending.
Debatable, but we'll leave that. When he returned, was it, hey, Trae Young is back? Or watch out for the Hawks because Trae Young is back? Because you would see at times when they grab and go, it's like, oh, Trae's looking for outlet. Oh, no, he's running the wing. You contrast that as far as Atlanta gets to a point where you can help us and we can ingratiate you to what we're doing, but I'm not sure we need as much of it. And then you contrast that with Washington, where they may need the playmaking, but they may need the hierarchy to a degree. And so how much does Trae Young balance things out? The one fun thing with Washington, as the season's progressed this year, you've seen more flow. You've seen more, okay, we don't have the first option. Let's get to the second option. Alex Sarr, okay, let me get to the other side. Let me get a handoff. Let me fake a handoff, swing, get a pick and roll. Like, they're getting to the point of understanding how to sustain offense. And on the good nights, again, in today's NBA, you can look at a team's record and say, oh, they're this. These teams can score and they can generate good shots and they can play. It's just how often can they do it? How much does Trae Young balance that out with his ability to operate and pick and roll and his ability to get downhill and his ability to draw attention from defenses? And then you contrast that with the current state of Trae Young and how much does what teams decided this is your box in Atlanta. This is where you're going to operate, Trae Young. Cool. If you look at his field goal attempts, just from different zones of the last 4 years, the distribution is kind of almost exactly the same. Here's some restricted area. Here's a whole bunch in the paint. There's some mid-range and threes. And then you look at the film, it's like, oh, yeah, that's drop. Turn the corner is the floater there. Turn the corner is the finish there. Turn the corner, skip pass, pull up, 2 or 3. Having that locked in as a base is good. Will he get treated the same in Washington with that kind of having more of an impact? Where it's like, oh, actually, no, Trae Young, we can't let you cook. Does that open up 2 on the ball again? How does that kind of navigate and operate is something that's been spinning in my brain, because I think it's easy to look at Trae Young and say, well, he's only X, Y, and Z. But what does X, Y, and Z do for the Washington Wizards?
No, I think that's a good point. I want to bounce off of that, actually, because I think the hierarchy point is such a strong one. And that's why, top of mind, I'm super excited about what this means for Alex Sarr and what it means for some of the other guards that, okay, now I can just attack more closeouts, or I can just attack more tilted defenses, or to your point about the flow that the Wizards have tried to establish, not just this year, even going back to last year. It's more natural now, like if a Trae pick and roll kicks something off and now we move to the second side, like that's a more natural spot for Keyshawn George to attack and use the big body to get downhill, absorb contact on drive, some of the playmaking unlocks and things. Like, it should be an easier context for so many of these guys. And I think to the Trae Young pick and roll point, I will say for him specifically, I think it was a good point for you just talking about his overall shot distribution and how teams are treating him. I wonder how much of that is the context of Atlanta. We are only giving you this in light of some of these other guys raising up. And how much of it is Trae, the shot making has not been there to the same degree. And until, similar to something that you brought up with Darius Garland, where he's obviously very good when healthy, but okay, you need to shoot enough of these floaters and enough of these pull-ups to make us do something different, and naturally have to make enough to make us do something different. And I think for Trae, because he's never been like an elite rim finisher, it's hard to be at his size naturally. He was able to compensate that with an elite floater at the high end. And the thing that annoys 80% of NBA fans these days is the foul drawing. It's like, okay, if I'm not getting all the way to the rim, at the very least, I am getting to the free throw line with some of these drives, with a lot of these drives, because I'm able to get you in jail, maybe to stop abruptly, get into some of those, or if you got your hand in the cookie jar and ripping through those, like he has all those tricks of the trade. And so even looking at this 10-game stretch that he's had in Atlanta so far, you've seen the foul drawing still be there. How often is he actually getting all the way to the rim? Not all the way there. What has the floater look like? It's been like 2 or 3 like high mark games for him. And I think that kind of skews some of the percentages, but like game to game, possession by possession, it hasn't been the same Trae Young that we've seen at the super high end. And it's like, okay, until you make enough of these, we're okay with this until your pull-up point. If Trae's just a low 30s 3-point shooter, then we have now the extended sample of the 3-point shot not being, flirting with like Steph range or anything like that. That's like, okay, I don't know if we need to do that right now. So like, I do think the context in Washington naturally is going to be different. He is the clear number one there whenever he plays, and that should invite a little bit more of 2 on the ball. But I don't know if we see a massive increase in that kind of coverage until he proves the floater is back or the pull-up 3 in particular is back.
Well, here's the counter I would throw at. When you have that kind of talent, it doesn't take too many made shots to make defenses reconsider to a degree, in my opinion. And so I think for me, I don't know that he's that level of shooter. And I feel like we can respect the mid-range jump shot, take some mid-range pull-ups, make them think about it, get them engaged somehow. But I think the biggest thing for Trae Young is just to get healthy. Even if you're getting older and the burst isn't quite the same, Trae Young has to have an element of drives to his game. He has to be able to get paint touches to either not just to create for himself, but to create for others, so that you have a mix of the pick and roll and the attacks in transition. You go back to 22-23, 18.4 drives per game for Trae Young. You go to 23-24, 15.6. You go 24-25, 17.1. This year, 10 games, 10.1. How are you generating what you want to generate? And can you find a way to get in the paint to open things back up for yourself?
I love the mind meld there. Literally the top of my Trae notes is his drive rate from 2021, going back to the Eastern Conference Finals run. He's at 29 drives per 100 possessions, and this year down to 16.2 per 100. So like, to your point, yeah, that has to be back on the table for him. Like, I do think if he's able to get healthy, which also kind of brings to mind, like, how much Trae Young are we actually going to see this year? In light of the health, do we want to make sure that he's just fully ready to go before he makes his debut, whether that's later this month, later this year, next season overall, because you also have the context of this top 8 protected first-round pick that they owe the New York Knicks? Like, I am just on a base level curious, when do we see Trae Young in Washington? But when he does make his return, like, yeah, you kind of need those drives. I think if you are able to threaten the paint more, like just on a very basic level, you have more opportunities to get to those floaters, to get to those shots at the rim, if you can, win those drives cleanly. More foul drawing opportunities to kind of settle Washington offensively. So it's there. That's where I was kind of like, worried is too strong, but my brow is kind of raised with what Trae has been the last year and a half in particular, because of that shot making, because of the burst, because with his size, the margins, no pun intended, are just incredibly small. And so if he goes from, just to the drive stat, if I'm driving nearly 30 times per 100 possessions and now that's cut in half, yeah, I'm a skilled passer. How often am I actually accessing those reads?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing I'll say. All he needs to have is a night where the defense is close to the level. Because I don't think people understand how quickly he diagnoses and makes these passes in pick and roll.
Oh, he's insanely good.
You can even watch it this year. Get some games in Chicago. When he got Nikola Vucevic close to that level of that screen, firing it away. So that's, again, it's going to open something up for Washington. And so can he just get some of the scoring back on the table? Because even, look, I understand that we're not in love with box score statistics anymore. But if a down year is still 19-9, I mean, those don't grow on trees.
In 28 minutes, yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? So, I mean, we can relax on... We're doing the thing with small guards and trying to take him out as an archetype, and I'm not sure I'm quite there yet.
I think that's fair. Like, I did want to, like, talk to you about that, because I know you have seen/heard a lot of that conversation. And, like, I think we, as a basketball community, can be hasty to being first about where basketball is going. And I don't even think that's inherently coming from a bad place. But, like, I do think there's a level of, a team tried to take this away in the playoffs. It worked. If you do this, you win. Or if you rely on this, and it can be taken away. You are bad. You need to pivot. And it's not always as black and white, to your point. I do think as mismatch hunty as the league has gotten, particularly in the postseason, and I think to your overall point about all these teams can score. They know when they get you in rotation, they know what to do with it. Like going back to some of those Hawks-Bulls games, it's, hey, we can put Trae in action, use this man as a screener, get a switch, and let's go. Or, actually, Trae, we're leaving you alone. Wait a minute, Trae Young is now in the weak side corner. He's the low man on this pick and roll. Like, teams are smarter about that kind of thing. And so that's where a bulk of the frustration for me with Trae defensively has come from, at least this year and a couple of years prior. Like we talked about on this podcast, if not last year, the year before, I'm just like, no, Trae's not a good defender. I actually kind of like the effort that he's giving. Like, this is more limitation versus that. The fact that it's felt more like these are effort issues with some of these possessions, like that is not a place that he can afford to get to. With where the league is, who he is, and then the combination of the two.
Well, I guess what I would say is I understand the concerns. Mismatch hunting is going to happen. He's going to be put in action. Can he master show and recover? Can he get out quick? Can he do his job, be in help side, do his job early, get back out, keep the ball in front? I think he can get there. I think most times we've had these questions about whether it's a big, a small guard, can they defend? Eventually they get to a point where they get there. Even you look at Cleveland, you look at Golden State, eventually we're going to switch. And if we switch, we're going to switch and double. We're going to try and move things around
to just help. Yeah.
To just try and get you to do something else. And that literally is half the battle in the playoffs. Can I do this well enough to where you do something else? The thing is, no matter what you get in the postseason, someone's going to get attacked. Someone's going to be put in action. Yeah. You could be as tall as Tyrese Halliburton. Come here, buddy. Let's chat. Let's see what happens. Every team is going to have someone in. You got to remember, this is a high confidence league. I might try and attack a matchup that you don't think I should. So, with that being said, I don't necessarily think that that's the end of the world. He does have to be in the right context. It does have to be a team that can understand what he is defensively. And so what you can't have is the Trae Young is having to help and recover. Trae Young is put in action, and then it's a post-up or a drive. We now overhelp because it's like, oh no, Trae, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And now we're in rotation that we maybe didn't have to be in. So can we get to a world where it's just solid and we can live with something, or is it just going to be a rotating wheel? I think that's a big question. But I don't think small guard's done. I think the league evolves, but the league always stays the same. Remember when centers were done? Remember we were done with centers and bigs and rim rollers?
You have to be able to shoot the small ball.
Yeah, and then now everyone's like, double big lineups. And I'm like, yeah, I remember what you guys said. Let's not relax. You guys, Kevin Love's still out there playing defense. So I'm not done with it. Do you think it's over for small guards? Do you, Nekias Duncan, think it's over for Trae Young as a star in this league?
Goodness gracious. I don't think it's over. I do think it is, to your first question, I don't think it's over for small guards. I do genuinely think it is just more difficult. I do think the bar is just higher in today's league. And so that's where, again, for Trae, and even with other guards, like I want to look at the Trae defense and say he was in the right spot. He is just 6'1", and you lost that possession. Versus, hey, why is Trae standing flat-footed? You know what I mean? Like, eliminate those. And I would say to Trae going to Washington is overall, I'm going to circle to your second question, but like to Trae going back overall, like I think there's a real, I'm going to remind them who I am type motivation for him. It's back with Travis Schlenk, who is in the management group from Washington. So you had that familiarity there. Like the one thing that I kind of worry about as we're talking about him setting the hierarchy offensively and how important that's going to be. To your point, I don't think this is, we got Trae Young, we are pushing for the playoffs next year. If you get that internal development and you get there, then obviously you take that. I do wonder what the defensive habits are going to be. Because like I don't want that to be a situation to where we are seeing more of what we saw this season in Atlanta with Trae, while you're still trying to build up all of these other young guys. And like what that could mean for the overall growth and the overall culture setting. Like that's something I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not saying it's automatically going to be bad as Cook, but it's like I do want to see what that looks like when he is available. As far as Trae being done,
to my second question, do you believe that Trae Young is done as a star in the NBA?
I don't think he's done as a star in the NBA. What I will say, a lot of this is to the defense and to the overall shot making. This is as perilous as it's ever been. As a Trae Young fan, as someone that got Mr. ABO jokes in the early season of the Duncan Spot podcast, I am rooting for him. This is as perilous as it's been. And when you are traded and not getting pick capital back for you and these kind of things, like, the reputation is certainly hit. I do still very heavily believe in the playmaking. But again, like, something has to bounce back for him. Like, I'd love to see the pull-up threes, like, fully bounce back for him. But I don't think it's done. He does kind of have to reestablish himself to get him out of this conversation at the very least. I think it's fair, and it's an indictment inherently. I think it's fair to have this conversation about him. I'm not going to go there yet, but it's fair to ask.